We'll have the Democratic response, then we'll have interviews with members and open our phone lines to hear your comments. Tuesday, our live coverage begins at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific Time.
Up next, it's this morning's briefing from U.S. military officials in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Each day since the war in the Persian Gulf began, the U.S. military has been briefing reporters from the command center in Riyadh. Today's briefing at 10 a.m. Eastern Time was led by Brigadier General Pat Stevens of the U.S. Central Command.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here with you tonight. This is the 12th day of Operation Desert Storm, and I'd like to give you a brief report on that, plus a special report, and I'll be happy to take your questions after that. First, concerning the weather, yesterday, as you probably know, it was basically clear throughout our entire area of operations. Today, it has remained clear within the area. Our around-the-clock air campaign continues with a focus on counter-air and interdiction. Our targeting priorities continue to be Iraqi leadership, command and control, airfields, SCUDs, lines of communication, Republican Guard forces, and battlefield preparation. There are 9 countries participating in the offensive air operations. They are the United States, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, the United Kingdom, Canada, Italy, and France. Our sortie total today, again, went over 2,000, of which about 50% are combat missions, and of that total, 16% were flown by our coalition partners. In the Iraqi aircraft losses in air-to-air combat, we have so far counted 26, and that consists of 8 MiG-29s, 9 F-1s, 7 MiG-23s, and 2 MiG-25s. Some additional information on yesterday's shoot-down that you heard a little bit about last night. We had 2 U.S. Air Force F-15 Eagles which shot down 3 MiG-23s and 1 F-1. That was 2 kills to each of the 2 Air Force F-15s on the enemy aircraft. Also, I would like to report to you that there is a total of 69 Iraqi aircraft which have flown into Iran. That total consists of 30 civil and military transports and about 39 fighters and bombers. Additionally, we've destroyed on the ground 23 Iraqi aircraft. Our ground forces today continued in their defensive posture, receiving sporadic artillery fire and conducting counter-battery artillery missions. Turning to the naval forces, today naval A-6s attacked 2 Iraqi naval vessels in the Bubiyan Channel. Bombs were observed to hit both. The current status of those vessels is unknown. Naval aircraft also attacked patrol boats at Qasr Naval Base and observed many secondary explosions and fires. Naval aircraft also attacked a patrol craft operating in Kuwait Harbor and left it burning. The maritime intercept operations have continued. Over the last 24 hours, there were 19 intercepts, bringing us to a total of over 7,000 since the operation began. Within the last 24 hours, we had 1 boarding, which brings us to a total of 837 boardings by the coalition forces. Naval diversions over the last 24 hours totaled 1, for a total in the campaign of 37 to date. Last night, as many of you probably noted, we had no SCUDs fired. So our total to date remains the same, of 26 towards the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and 25 towards Israel, for a total to date of 51. On enemy prisoners of war, we now have a total of 105. Now, lastly, I want to comment on an issue that I know has received a lot of attention, and that is the oil slick. The extent of that slick remains a little bit unclear. I assure you that it is being monitored. It appears that we have stopped the flow of oil, but we continue to seek positive confirmation of that fact. The size of the fire that General Schwarzkopf showed you pictures of last night appears today to have diminished. That slick is moving south, we adjudge, at about 15 miles per day, and will bring the southern edge of it tomorrow to the vicinity on the Saudi coast of Ras Al Mishab, which on the map here is just here, it having moved south from Kuwait. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes my prepared statement, and at this time I would be happy to take any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
Yeah, General, can you give us any more information on the Iraqi planes that are going into Iran? Any more details as to why, or whether this is a concerted effort, where they're coming from? Are they coming from one area in Iraq? Can you talk any more about what's happening?
I know there are a number of conspiracies and thoughts and flavorings to what's going on. I would comment that we're delighted to see that, because every one of those aircraft that leaves Iraq is one less that we will have to engage in combat. I don't have any idea, sir, in answer to your question, about what the reasoning might be in the minds of those who are doing it.
Are they coming from one area, one particular area, or all over? Can you tell us where they're coming from?
I don't have knowledge about that, and so I can't answer your question. Yes, sir.
General Stevens, one of the contingencies or flavorings that is being bandied about in the Pentagon about those planes in Iran is that they could be massing for some type of an attack on our fleet. Are there contingency plans that are being laid down to fight off some type of an attack on the fleet launched from Iran?
I know there's probably no end of speculation about what's going on. I would say that as far as we're concerned within the command endeavors to take every contingency that we're humanly able to do into account, and I assure you that we're not ignoring that one. But we do not see that as a realistic action. As General Schwarzkopf mentioned last night, those aircraft that have gotten into Iran, we anticipate will stay there.
General, has anyone asked Iran what they're doing, what the planes are doing? Or?
I don't know, and frankly, that's a question.
As a follow-up, why aren't we targeting Saddam Hussein, since if we took him out, it would seem to solve the problem?
We're trying to address that question one by one with a little help from my right, from Colonel Gallagher. What I said was command and control, and that's what I said. Command and...
You said Iraqi leadership, sir.
And command and control, yes, thank you very much. We are, you're taking good notes. We are not targeting any individual person. I want to assure you of that, and I think a number of people have stood up here and said that, including my boss.
We've heard of it. Why not?
I would just not address that. It is not being done. We are targeting leadership. We are targeting command and control. We are not targeting individuals. Yes, sir.
General, Red Cross personnel and others who have driven the Baghdad-Jordan highway the last couple of days reported that highway has been heavily hit, continues to be heavily hit. The traffic, the cars, trucks passing on it have been hit, and the cluster bombs have been used along that highway. Now, that highway is also an important route for refugees trying to go to Jordan. Is that road considered a military target? Have cluster bombs been used along that route? Can you comment on the reports from Red Cross personnel?
Well, I'll comment on the report, but I'll say that, first of all, I have no knowledge of the report. I would say that we do target main supply routes, MSRs, lines of communication within the theater of operations. We do that specifically to interdict supplies and military traffic. We have been extraordinarily careful not to cause any innocent civilian deaths or casualties. And so I won't address the specific allegation because I'm not aware of it, but we go out of our way to avoid that sort of thing. Yes, sir.
General, in your introductory comments, excuse me, you said nothing about any air losses during the last 24 hours. Are we to assume then that there have been no losses, and that would that make it 72 hours straight without any combat losses of coalition aircraft? And if that is indeed the case, would you comment on what that might tell us about the Iraqi air defense system?
Well, yes, I'll comment on that. The fact that we've sustained no losses would lead one to assume that our campaign against his command and control and his air defense system is being remarkably effective.
And is it true that we've gone 72 hours without any losses?
As of this moment, my report is that we have gone 72 hours and sustained no friendly losses, yes. Yes, sir.
General, a number of your predecessors as briefers have made a point of saying that the target selection has taken into account important religious or sensitive cultural sites. Can you tell me whether target selection also evaluated potential environmental damage from things like attacking refineries, and if so, whether potential environmental damage, if that was a factor in selecting targets?
Well, I'm not going into target selection. For obvious reasons, I wouldn't want to comment on that. However, do let me comment on the question that you raise about targeting things that may not have a military effect. General Schwarzkopf talked last night about his weighing the decision, about the decision that was made to target those manifold areas yesterday. And what he said was that he's not in the business of destroying Kuwait in order to liberate it. And so I would just use that comment in response to your question. We do avoid, to the maximum extent that we can, any collateral damage to religious or national shrines, and certainly innocent civilian lives. We target military targets for the purpose of achieving the military objective on the battlefield. Yes, sir.
The figure you mentioned about prisoners of war, does it include those who cross lines and give themselves up, or those are treated differently?
May I ask, your question is, are those people who come south of their own volition considered in the same category as enemy prisoners of war?
Yeah, completely that way, yeah.
And the answer is we treat them largely the same, yes. We put them together, we care for them together. We do have a count today, however, of enemy prisoners of war of 105. Yes, sir.
Have we had any diplomatic contact with Iran to see what is their intention to do about these planes that have, appear to have taken refuge there?
Again, I would refer that question to those people who conduct diplomatic initiatives, and that's our Department of State and the foreign ministries of the other coalition partners. Yes, sir, with the paper up.
Yeah, General, the excuse me, the Washington Post is reporting today that that the Allies have only taken out 8 of some 36 of the SCUD missile launchers, quoting military sources in Washington. Furthermore, they're saying that Central Command is being overly optimistic in accounts of how many launchers have been being taken out. Can you comment on that, please?
Well, I can't comment on the nature of the report. I can tell you, however, that we continue to target SCUD launchers. We believe that we're being quite effective in doing so. We believe that we have seen a reduction in his capability to launch those weapons of terrorism. And I would just tell you that without being able to comment specifically on what you talked about there, I would not in any way say that this command is not pretty pleased with its ability to target those, even though they are extremely difficult to target, and we have been very successful in a very difficult situation. Yes, ma'am.
In light of the fact that it took about 9 days for reports to filter to General Schwarzkopf that there was an oil spill coming from the Kuwaiti oil facility, are we taking any special measures now to surveil other facilities which may be subject to Iraqi sabotage that we weren't taking in the initial stages, so that we might be able to catch these things more quickly?
I would answer that question, I think, probably by saying that we surveil all those things which we feel are necessary in the conduct of the campaign.
General, is there any intelligence information concerning 4 missing Western journalists who have been missing about a week now, I believe?
I have no reports. Unfortunately, I do not for you. Are you talking about the Mr. Simon and his party? They are, that entire situation is being looked after by our host nation here, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And of course, to the extent that we can, we offer any assistance in that regard, but I don't have a report for you tonight. Yes, sir.
The administration said that we would not use nuclear weapons in this war. Has Saudi Arabia forbidden the United States to bring nuclear weapons in, and beyond that, are there nuclear weapons in Saudi Arabia at this time?
I really don't want to go into operational matters of that nature. Thanks very much. Yes, sir.
General, if I can go back to the missing CBS crew. A senior Saudi official has told CBS News that a defecting Iraqi soldier now in Saudi custody told them that several days ago, I'm not sure of the time frame, that he saw 4 Westerners in the custody of elite Iraqi troops in Kuwait. Do you have any knowledge of this prisoner of war? And if you did have knowledge, could we get access to him?
No, sir, I have no knowledge. And beyond that, I'm really not prepared to comment this evening, but I have not heard that report, no. Yes, sir.
The Baghdad says they caught some coalition people in a helicopter in Baghdad. Do you have anything on that?
Let me make sure I understand that. A Baghdad report.
They caught some coalition people in a helicopter in Iraq.
No, I'm not aware of that. No, sir. Let me go to the back row back there. Yes, sir.
There's only one ship, one Norwegian ship in the Gulf for to fight against the oil disaster. Do you really think it's enough to fight against this disaster? One Norwegian ship?
Well, as I stand here, I'm not aware of that. I know that any help that could be provided would, I suspect, be very welcome, and I know the Norwegians have had some experience in that. But I can't address your question there. I have some late input. Excuse me for those who had their hands up. I have a report here that a U.S. Marine Corps AV-HB Harrier jet aircraft was reported lost today in action. The status of the pilot is unknown at this time. We will get more information to you as soon as it's available. I'm sorry to have to report that. Yes, sir.
Last night, General Schwarzkopf, and I paraphrase, but left a clear impression that in bombing the oil manifold, that would hold it for 2 weeks. And I think he said, until we can get in there, his authorities informed him. That and comments from French and British sources over the weekend have suggested there's a 2-week time frame of continued aerial bombardment before any sort of land confrontation begins in earnest. Can I ask you, was it your intention? Are you putting that out as a 2-week time frame for the world to consider to be
Oh, absolutely
ahead?
not. Absolutely not. And in fact, I'm sure you've heard person after person stand up here and tell you that we will not address the timing of any element of our campaign for what I know are very obvious reasons. Way in the back. Yes, sir.
Of the Iraqi warplanes that have gone to Iran, how many of those are their best planes? F-1s, MiG-29s, that sort of thing?
The question is, of the Iraqi aircraft which have flown into Iran, how many are F-1s? And MiG-29s. I don't have that up here, but we may be able to get that for you. Yes, sir.
More in your bailiwick. What's the situation on A rations for most of the troops here now? Are they getting them daily, couple
By
meals
rations,
a day?
You're talking about the hot food?
Fresh food.
Feeding the troops, which is always an issue in any Army, Navy, or Air Force at any time in history, remains an issue here. I've been a soldier myself for coming on close to 30 years now, and I have a great interest in food. The decision about what is made, on who gets what kind of ration, is a very complex logistical thing. The flowing, as we call it in the logistics area, of foodstuffs into the theater of operations and up to the front lines is a very, very difficult thing. We have to weigh those decisions with all the other things that we have to move, ammunition, spare parts, and everything else. And in this theater, of course, water is very important to us. So yes, and I'm probably not answering your question at all, but I'll tell you that we will feed A's whenever we can, because generally those are the most desirable, but we cannot do it all the time in every place.
Well, is it mainly then still T rations and MREs?
It depends on the situation. I'll have to leave it there because it depends upon where in the theater of operations that soldier, sailor, airman, Marine is.
Army in the field.
Same thing, depends on where they are. Yes, sir.
Sir, some Saudi Reserve Bedouin scouts told me yesterday that the rains they experienced up north were the heaviest they can remember for any winter in one 24-hour period. Are you factoring in the intensity of the rain and the mud situation that exists up there in terms of your movement and your log train?
I think I would answer your question by saying that we factor every eventuality, and obviously to a military person, the weather and the terrain is fundamentally important, especially for those who grew up in the Army or the Marines.
Is there rain and mud up there, though?
It has been raining, and there is mud. Yeah, that's right. Even here. Let me catch one I haven't. Back with the glasses, sir.
A lot of problem with shortages of equipment. Some of the equipment is still on the ships, according to some of the commanders. Other commanders are having trouble moving their units according to the movement schedule that they've been given. Could you respond to that at this level and give us some insight into what's going on?
I would tell you that the logistics aspects of this campaign have been conducted magnificently. In one of the most difficult situations, and I'll caveat that in a minute, in one of the most difficult situations that we've had. Speaking for the U.S. forces, we're in a theater 7,000 miles from the United States. We not only have to move things into the theater, but we have to move them forward within the theater. Having said that, and having told you how well that's going, obviously we will continue to move things. From the time the ground campaign may start, we will still be moving things. And I suspect you'll be hearing people talk about ships and trucks and transport and aircraft until the end of this campaign and beyond. I'm sorry?
Situation now, any impediment to U.S. ground operations?
I don't want to comment on any impediments or lack thereof. The campaign is progressing as it's planned and in accordance with the desires of the President, and will execute the orders as he dictates. Yes, sir.
Can you comment on a report in a Saudi-owned Arabic newspaper today, Asharq al-Awsat, that SCUD missiles are being transported into Iraq from depots inside Jordan?
No, I can't and won't. I'm simply not aware of it. Yes, sir.
Sir, on the spill, U.S. response team flew in today, and one of the elements of that team was the Corps of Engineers. Can you give me any idea, the rest is EPA, I guess, and NOAA, and the Coast Guard, can you give me any idea if that's part of your own operation, or is this something that's entirely outside the field of operations of CENTCOM?
Yes, it's not part of our operation, and that sounds confusing. Let me comment on that. We had the elements of that team you mentioned are accurate, and it also includes, I don't think you mentioned NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. That's a team that's here at the request of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It's a composite team, as you suggested, of many elements of the U.S. government which have had expertise in dealing with past oil spills. It is not working for General Schwarzkopf, and that's about all I can say. Yes, sir? The following?
The Iraqis have a facility like the Al-Ahmadi facility about 50 miles north on Fao Peninsula with the same sort of buoy system which could release more oil in. As a follow-up to an earlier question, is that now under increased aerial surveillance to make sure that Saddam doesn't dump some of his own oil in to make things?
Well, for obvious reasons, I don't want to comment on what we surveil or don't look at. I would hark back to what the Commander-in-Chief, General Schwarzkopf, said last night, in which he said, we don't know what Mr. Hussein is going to do up there. So we consider all eventualities as best we can.
Two more questions.
Last night, I think 39 Iraqi aircraft en route to Iran. Now you've got, up to 69. You've got something of a pattern going. Is it the Allied Air Force's intention to make it easy for Iraqis to fly into Iran now? Will you back off and cut them some space if they want to bail out to Iran now? Is that your plan?
Well, I don't want to comment on the conduct of the air campaign. I'm quite frankly not disappointed to see them flee into Iran, because once there, they are no longer a threat to us. As long as they're in the campaign, as long as they're in the theater of operations, we will go after them on the ground and in the air. If they're in Iran, they're beyond our ken. Yes, ma'am.
General Schwarzkopf said you would take Iran at its word that it was neutral territory.
That's
Militarily, is that enough?
I'm not going to stand here and gainsay what my commander-in-chief said. I heard him say the same thing, and I would support that, absolutely. Yes, ma'am, and this is the last question.
Same sense. Are you absolutely certain that they're not going to Iran in order to mount some kind of massive attack on what makes you certain of that?
I
What
do
makes you
not
certain?
know what is in their mind, and I am not certain of anything, but I go back and say again, and we've had a lot of questions that lead me to say this, that we try and consider every eventuality in the campaign that may occur. And so I'd like to assure you, and I would like to assure the enemy, that we're not forgetting they're there. Yes.
As a follow-up, the number seems to have almost doubled in a day. Have they all left yesterday? Can you give us a breakdown of how many went at what time?
No, I can't. I don't have that available, but I'm sure we can get it for you. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I think that's it.
Just after the U.S. briefing today, Saudi Arabian officials conducted a briefing led by their military official spokesman. Next, you'll hear from Colonel Ahmed al-Robayan of the Saudi Army as he briefed reporters just after 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time.
Good afternoon.